This is Spirit in Motion.
I heard this joke the other day. Somebody was talking about the way Netflix used to be and how you would get DVDs in the mail. And basically how it's such an antiquated system that Netflix is basically they were taking their DVD, giving it to some guy and saying, "Here, take this to their house."
Do you know what's genius though? Is that, and I did not know this, but the dude who created Netflix, I don't even know his name.
Steve Netflix.
Yeah, the way that they do it today is how he started. That was the idea.
Oh, that's what he wanted.
The mail thing was just to get the company going.
Oh, crazy.
That's why it's called Netflix.
That would have been
which made no sense when you thought about it. It was never called like movies by mail.
Yeah,
it was Netflix because that whole the internet speed didn't exist to be able to do the streaming that he foresaw when they started I thought, wow, like that's an idea, and that's pretty cool. You know, you have your DVDs constantly rotating through, no late fees, that kind of thing.
Man, when you were binging a show, but you only had like 2 DVDs and you watched all 8.
Oh man,
you were like, I gotta wait for them to send the DVDs.
This is a really riveting conversation.
Today we're talking about technologies.
Are we?
No. Today we're talking about the idea that your past doesn't define you.
Oh, so I guess we were talking about the past in general, how
Man.
things used to be.
Look at that segue.
Wow.
What are you, a preacher?
I am. I know. I could take it from anywhere and just work it right in, feather it in.
Speaking of my shirt being unclean, my soul. My soul is unclean. So this podcast is based on the idea of statements that are true lies that seem true on the surface, but then when you dig down into them, you're like, oh, maybe that's a little bit of a misunderstanding. So we're saying my past doesn't define me. Right.
Is a true lie.
Sounds
good.
Yeah.
Not really true.
You want to be able to say, when I look back on my past, that's not who I am.
Yeah, which you can do.
It's got a hint of biblical.
New creation in Christ.
Yeah. I used to ask my dad, growing up, he got saved at like 18, I think. Drank all through high school. I would ask him, and he's not alive anymore, but I don't think he'd have a problem with me sharing the story. But I would ask him, Dad, tell me about when you used to drink. And he would say, I'm a new creation in Christ.
I don't need to talk about it.
So he wouldn't talk about it. I kind of feel like now, I was 8. So maybe just don't talk to an 8-year-old about it. I feel like now if I had asked him, he'd be like, yeah, I'll tell you about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's church wise, that's where some of that comes from, right?
Right. That I can kind of move on.
Yeah.
And I think there's some truth to it in the sense that, I don't need to identify with where I come from. And I totally think that there is a way that you kind of get stuck in the past of who you were, living by an old identity, thinking of yourself through a lens that you need to let go of. And I mean, we don't call it being born again for nothing. I mean, Jesus, so that phrase comes from John 3 and Jesus speaking to a man named Nicodemus. You must be born again. He was speaking about having a spiritual rebirth. So, I mean, that's all real. That's all what we believe. But it is easy enough to kind of get attached to an old identity, an old way of thinking, or even an old wound. And I think that's probably most likely is just a kind of a habitual way that we think about ourselves. And I think one of the challenges is that we give our lives to Christ. We go, okay, I'm going to become a Jesus follower, a Christian, right? And there's all of these promises, and when I say promises, sort of like the benefits. Here's what's going to happen. I mean, you're not doing it for nothing. I mean, there's there's reasons why I'm making this decision, and so I'm thinking, on the other side of this, I'm going to be. It's a new day for me. I'm turning over a new leaf. I'm going to be baptized. All these types of things, and often that's what people are looking for when they show up, and that's what they want. What I think sometimes you can be discouraged to find is that I'm still battling and wrestling with the same things that I always was. And so there is this, I think, positive thing about taking hold of a new identity and becoming someone new that I think is so true about the Christian faith. But the downside of that is that I am still affected by where I've come from. And if I don't deal with those things, so I think what happens a lot of times is that people embrace a new identity as a way of avoiding where they've come from, what they've been through.
I think there's a couple of arguments, one for and one against that. One of the arguments is, I can't go back and redo the past.
Yeah.
So I'm always going to have to deal with the consequences of what I did or who I was or what was done to me. But then on the other side, there would be a group that would say, I am new in Christ and I do not ever plan on revisiting the past. So let's look at a couple of them. What's the danger in being unable to separate yourself from what's happened in the past?
Well, I mean, I think the danger is that you never move on, right? You never become who you could be. So, I started drinking when I was 17. I'm 44. I'm still an alcoholic. Like, am I always an alcoholic? Even if right? So there, I know people who like, the whole AA idea of saying I'm an alcoholic, I'm Whit, I'm an alcoholic, like that just doesn't work for them. No, I'm not an alcoholic. I'm not who I used to be.
Yeah.
I get it. But to then not admit a lot of those things and to try to say, well, I think a lot of times we use our faith, our faith journey as a way of avoiding painful feelings, difficult conversations, facing what's really going on the inside of us.
Yeah.
And I think there's a difference between looking at who you've been and saying, this is what's motivated me, and then owning that as an identity. And I think that's an important distinction.
Yeah.
So I can say, this has been what I've done and what I've chosen, and alcohol is a real problem for me. But I don't have to identify necessarily as an alcoholic. I think you can embrace a new identity in Christ and say, I'm set free in Christ. Just like for me, alcohol's never been a problem for me, but porn was.
Yeah.
So am I a porn addict today? No, I don't identify as a porn addict today. Was I? Yep. That was something that I did for a season of my life, maybe a significant season of my life. But I don't embrace that as my identity. Does that mean I don't think about or have to be vigilant about how I think about pornography and sexually explicit imagery? Absolutely not. Like, that's something I know is a pitfall for me, so I have to be thoughtful about it. So there's a difference between an identity but all the same, those things mark you and shape you, and to not acknowledge that.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I think so often we want to just kind of slap a new label on it and then move on. And I just don't think it works that easily.
Yeah, and that's the other side. That's the other argument, is that if I'm a follower of Jesus, I don't look or view or work through the past.
Yeah,
because I'm a new creation in Christ.
Right.
That would be the side that I probably have been more on for the majority of my life.
Right.
And there is a danger there.
Yeah, it's what I've been describing. It's basically I'm avoiding.
Yeah.
So I know so many people that's their struggle. They avoid the past. They avoid the difficult conversations, and that could be a variety of a few things. One, often it's just because it's too painful, too uncomfortable. That could be a function of their personality type. Some people just like, well, what, you're a 7?
7, yeah.
Yeah. So you don't love pain at all. Like, fun is your thing. So
super.
So anything. So this is going to get uncomfortable. Let's not go there. Let's get back to fun. Let's steer the conversation toward the positive. I mean, I have friends like that's just, they like to frame everything, see the world through a real positive lens. And it's really difficult for them to just own, painful stuff. I'm married to someone like this.
Yeah.
In retrospect, she can talk a lot about, this was happening and I was doing this, but in the moment, oh my gosh. And I've got kids this way too. One of my sons is this way. He's just you go in to say, Elliot, this is what's happening. And I mean, it's incredible. The whole elaborate defense mechanism that comes up. It's like a transformer or something. It's amazing.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm just sitting here thinking about all the conversations that I don't enjoy.
Really?
Because they're just painful in the moment. And you're right. I've never thought about the fact that I really don't mind talking about the past and dumb things I've done or, big sin or big mistakes I've made. But like if we're talking about right now, that's harder.
Let's
for
not
me.
go there.
I mean, I'm very thankful. I mean, the beautiful thing about marriage is it is a mirror.
Yeah.
And if you are married to someone who's on the same journey towards Christ, then you get to walk through it together and you're all the sharper at the end. But it's not my favorite thing in the world.
The other night, Heather and I were at dinner after church, and she was really coming at me, just like challenging me on some stuff, which was really good. And at a certain point, I had to say, I'm enjoying this because I could tell she thought I wasn't, because I get a little aggressive, and I like that, you know. So I'm like, this is fun for me. I like arguing, and she was like, oh, okay, I didn't know, but she was really challenging me to let go of some things, to stop writing some narratives in my mind, and it was really good. Probably 20, 30 minutes of our evening was just that conversation. And so then when that was done, I was like, well, I so appreciate you. Thank you for engaging with me. And then I kind of turned around and said, so here's what I would love from you.
Oh, yeah.
And I was asking for, honestly, just, some, it sounds ridiculous, but appreciation, just like some things that I was doing. It's like, I feel like I'm doing what you want me to do.
Yeah, you would like some appreciation.
Yeah, I'm just like, I feel like I'm not killing it, but I'm doing all right over here, but I don't ever hear it from you. You don't know how much your praise means to me. And I'm sharing this with her. And it was amazing how Heather, this incredible, super emotionally intelligent, empathetic person, can't all of a sudden make heads nor tails of what I'm saying for the next 30, 45 minutes. I have to explain it like 55 times. I don't know what you want from me right now, Whit. I'm not sure what's going on. And it's like, and I've this is not unfamiliar to me. Like I've been down this road so many times before. And I'm like, why is this so hard? Why is it that you can empathize with people that, and I don't even know why we're talking about this, but painful conversations. And so it's hard for her. And so I recognize that, but it's like, it's really difficult for her to have that conversation. So sometimes I think we use Jesus as a way to avoid pain.
Yeah.
In difficult conversations.
When, I think growing up in the 90s, counseling wasn't as prominent of a conversation.
Oh no.
Between
counseling was where you went when everything was going to hell.
Yeah. It's if you're like, it would be a joke, right? Like, oh, they're
counseling. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh wow. I didn't know it had gotten that bad. Yeah, I was actually just listening to Heather's podcast. We do listen to each other's. I listen to hers. I don't know if she listens to mine, but I was listening to hers, and she was talking about a time where she asked if I wanted to go to counseling for our marriage.
Oh yeah,
I was like, oh no, oh no, because I mean, the statement that makes about the state of our lives. Oof, I cannot do that. Today, that's shifted, at least for us.
Yeah. I don't know when it shifted, but at some point in the last 5 or 10 years,
people just started talking about it. I'm thankful that pastors, I've started talking about it. Just like, hey, it's okay to go see a counselor. You might need to. You probably need to.
You probably
need to. If you're listening to this, you probably need to.
Yes.
I guess I think of it as like a mechanic for your soul. Why wouldn't you take your car in to go, hey, is this thing running appropriately?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you get your car serviced. I just think your soul probably needs a little servicing. And it's not, some of the biggest breakthrough moments in my life have been when someone was asking me, questions about my upbringing.
Yeah.
And you just realize, oh wow, there's some emotion there. Maybe there's some fear there. Maybe there's some pain there. There's some good things there. There's some not so good things there. I mean, not all of us have, some people might have an abusive background. Some people don't. I don't, but there's still parts of my past that I have to work through and realize some of it's just family patterns.
Yeah.
It's like, I've always been the oldest. This is always how I've responded. This is how and you just have to go, oh, wow, that's I don't know if that's healthy. Do I need to move on from that?
Yeah. I think that I think it's important just to recognize that there are individuals who have had the proper schooling to help you just identify. So this is a really simple example. My father's been gone for 11 years now, and about 2 years ago, I was talking to God about my daughter being born, and I started to think about my dad, and I started to cry, and I had pretty much gotten to the point where any time I talk about my dad, I didn't really have those feelings anymore. And I asked my counselor about it, and he said, "You're grieving something new. You didn't have to grieve the fact that your father wasn't a grandfather before, but now you're missing out on that." All that is one person who has, he's got the proper training, and just identifying that for me has been huge.
Wow.
So now when I have another kid, or when maybe something else positive happens in my life, when I give her away to be married, I'll know what that is. And I think that's pretty beautiful.
Wow.
Why is it so important that we look back on the mistakes that we've made in light of being a follower of Christ? How is that really going to help us?
Well, I think it's important not to just look back on mistakes that you've made. You're not looking for, God's not wanting to, rub your nose in what you've done wrong and be like, here, look at this. You did this.
Yeah.
This is you.
Yeah.
Face it, deal with it, own it. It's about looking at patterns and looking at things that have marked you that maybe you're still responding to today.
Yeah.
Maybe this thing that happened to me, maybe this rejection that happened when I was a kid, maybe some of the things that I'm doing as an adult are actually in response to some things I started to believe way back when. It's amazing because I can find patterns in my life. I remember being in 6th grade. We were playing, I was on the B team, the basketball B team. And I thought I was going to be really good, but I ended up on the B team. And I specifically remember playing this game over at East Central High School in 6th grade. And we were just getting shellacked because, we're the B team. And I remember feeling, maybe for the first time, so humiliated that we were losing like this. And I just started yelling at this kid who I kind of, on our team, who I kind of assigned as the sort of the blame for why we were losing. He was making the mistakes. You're the cause of this. You're no good. And I look at it now and I go, that's deflection. I didn't want to face, we're just not very good, or I didn't want to own that. I wanted to pin that on someone. I wanted to blame shift that right away. And I remember I get done with this and my mom is like, "Whit, you cannot do this." She made me go over and apologize. I had to go get in, his station wagon with his mom and crying and apologizing to him. And I felt so bad, but it didn't stop me from doing it again and again.
Wow.
And again up into my 20s, 30s. I mean, people, I see this in my daughter. She's got this crazy competitive streak in her. And there's this aggression, and she was playing in a powder puff football league here. And I went out to watch her play, and some of the refs are like, they were reffing the game that, on our staff, or guys that used to ref some old flag football games for the church that I was in. They're like, this is bringing back a lot of memories, because that's how I was super aggressive and could be pretty cruel, not just, very cruel, but it was all deflection.
Yeah.
It was all about me trying to form some identity out on a field or whatever that would, if I could be the best, then, if I could dominate you, then I felt good about myself. If I lost, I felt shamed and humiliated and embarrassed. I've had to kind of process that and realize that's not where my identity falls, and recognize where those patterns come from. So I remember when I started learning this about myself, not just that I have it. So for years I just classified it as, I have a temper, or this is just what men do when they play sports. They get aggressive. I made all kinds of excuses for myself, not taking into account that I took it way further than anyone else. And so when I started to realize I've really got a problem here, and started to see the pattern of it all, and started figuring out where this was coming from and what this was about, then I started kind of replacing. So I remember playing basketball in a church league with a guy who'd played Division I basketball, and I wanted to show him what's up, because I didn't play Division I basketball, but I'll show you that I'm better than you anyway. That was just my thinking. But as in the middle of this game, and I'm thinking, and of course he's winning, and I'm frustrated by it. And I remember thinking, okay, I have to replace these thoughts of embarrassment, shame with this guy. I don't know him, but he's made in the image and likeness of God. This is a brother in Christ.
Yeah.
So I started forcing myself to compliment things he was doing in the middle of the game, which then lowered the temperature that I was feeling, and enabled me to get through the game with a totally different perspective.
Yeah.
Instead of raging. That's a fairly simple example.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen without recognizing the pattern of what's going on in your past.
Yes.
And there's a lot more of that I think, from father issues to mother issues to abuse that we've suffered to labels that we've, decided to put on or other people have put on us. So it's not just our mistakes. It's literally a whole host of things.
I have a really funny story specifically about you playing flag football that I've never told you before.
Please tell me. Were you a ref?
I was a ref.
Oh my gosh.
Dusty asked me to ref. I don't know anything about football.
I know you don't. I have no idea how you were.
When you said B team on basketball, I thought you meant basketball team. I didn't realize that there was an A and a B team. So I was like, yeah, don't they call them all the B teams? He asked me to ref, and the only thing that mattered to me was I got paid $10 a game. That's all I needed to know. He was going to pay me $10 to ref the flag football team. And I thought, I'll figure it out as I go. And I refed a couple of your games.
Oh, God.
And it wasn't my favorite experience. I didn't know you very well. I didn't know you at all, other than knowing who you were. But the last game I refed was you versus your brother.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that'll do it.
And right before it happened, I went over to another ref and I said, for the love of God, please switch me. And he did.
So you didn't have to ref me?
No.
Oh, nice.
I don't know what I would have done because I was in a situation. I have this
been caught between two of us.
Well, I have this hilarious story about how Ethan Vance, one of the other guys, he got in someone's way kind of when they were catching the football, and I didn't know exactly what he had done wrong, but I could just kind of tell something wasn't right. And so I blew the whistle, and he looked at me and he goes, "What?" And I said, "You know what you did." And he goes, "You're right."
You bluffed it.
Yeah.
Incredible. That was well played.
Yeah.
Nicely done in the moment.
You. I mean, I'm still kind of proud of that. Here at the church, we talk a lot about just tensions from the past that we carry around as a kind of a badge of not honor, dishonor. A lie that kind of keeps coming up.
Baggage, I think is the word you're looking for.
I think that's what I was looking for. And, mine since I was a child has been that I'm fun to have around. It's a good laugh if I'm around, but you can't take me seriously. I am not worth putting into a position of authority or leading anything.
Wow.
Or
when did that begin?
When I was in 8th grade, I used to hang out with these guys that were just my best friends. They're great guys to hang around. And they were all in a band. I wasn't in the band. I was like the guy who sold the t-shirts.
Right.
And there was another guy that kind of hung out with us sometimes. He was much older. He was like 6 years older than us. We were almost in high school. And every time I would come around, if he was there, he would say, "Who brought the kid?"
Wow.
And he would always say it the same way. He'd say, "Who brought the kid?" And, first I didn't think anything about it, but years later I started to feel, he might as well have been saying, "You're not cool enough to be hanging out with us. We'll let you, if you find out where we're going, you'll tag along and we'll put up with you." And the older I got, the more I began to feel that lie coming back in different ways. I've pretty much worked at a church my whole life.
Right.
And so in church, what's a big part of the church world is leadership. you growing in your leadership. And somebody just said to me one time, I don't think you're a leader, Adam. And I've always had a lot of success, especially here at the church, in the arts, writing and performing and doing funny things. But to be told you're not a leader was that guy just saying to me again, 15 years later, who brought the kid?
Yeah.
So out of that, I would just cover it up with optimism. I mean, you know me, like if you're like, you want to work on this project? I'm like, let's do it. And I'm genuinely excited about it. Can you do this, Adam? Yeah, I can get into it. Let's do it. But that optimism over time, the older I got, turned into little white lies.
Wow.
Do you know how to do this, Adam? Yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, I can figure it out. It's fine. But do I actually know how to do it? Not really. Did I figure it out? Sure. So then as I keep going, it kind of, it turned it into flat out lies.
Wow.
So somebody called me years ago, about 7 years ago, and asked me if I could shoot some B-roll for a project. And I've always had a lot of experience around video, but I'm usually in front of the camera. And I thought to myself, I can probably figure that out. But I didn't say that. I didn't say, I could probably do that. Let me look online, see if I can figure out how to do it. Instead, this is the dumbest phrase anybody could say. I said, yeah, I live behind a camera.
Wow.
Which first is just a dumb sentence. No one lives behind a camera. I don't know why I said it that way. But when I got there, I had to trick my way into getting the camera turned on.
Wow.
And I handed it to somebody. Said, you turn this on for me, I'm going to go grab a tripod.
Wow.
And I was getting him to turn it on for me.
Wow.
And did I figure it out? Yeah, sure. Did I flat out lie? Yes, I did.
Wow.
And it's really been throughout my marriage that's been identified as not optimism, not a can-do attitude, but just a straight out lie. And what I'm doing is I'm lying to.
You're covering for yourself.
I'm covering for myself so that you won't say, who brought the kid?
Wow.
Yeah.
And so that comes from your past.
Yeah.
But it affects who you are today.
Yeah.
Yeah. And those things that start, and so that's why we go back to look and go, where did this begin? What is this? Is there a pattern?
Yeah.
And then so I can, it's not so that I can live there. I don't think Jesus wants to take you into your past so that you can, again, he's not trying to shame you, but he's also not wanting you to live there or stay there.
That's so good.
He wants to heal you.
Yeah.
And resolve the issue that began there. And I think that's why looking at the source of it is like, if you're going to solve, if your body's hurting, if you've broken your arm, taking Tylenol might help for a minute, just to deal with the immediate pain, but it's not going to heal the arm. If you're not dealing with the source of the problem, the source of the issue, you're just going to keep dealing with the same pain points. And for so many of us, we're living lives with the same pain points. They keep popping up and we keep going back to these same behaviors. And we're not aware of why it's happening. We don't know. And that's why counseling is helpful, or a pastor or a small group or a dear friend group who can help you process these things. They serve as a guide.
Yeah.
They're helping to navigate you and for you to navigate yourself and go, oh, wow, that's what that is.
Yeah.
That's where that began. I didn't realize that. We do something, we started this a couple of years ago, which is so beautiful, called Real Jesus. It's a like a small group journey, 10 weeks of small group, and then a weekend experience where we walk people through, different issues from pride and greed, and just talking about those, and really where you kind of get an opportunity to go, do I deal with this? And then to confess some things and kind of get it off your chest. But there's this one really powerful part of it where you just talk about labels and how labels get, stuck on you when you're younger. Maybe it's ugly, fat, dumb, the kid, whatever it is. And so what we do is we have people, after some processing, write down, what that is, and then put it, it's like a sticker, and they put it on the cross. And as I walk by there every time, I'm amazed at the labels that are on there, amazed at the words that people carry around in their soul. And maybe it was given to them by a father or an uncle or a teacher or a coach or whatever, or a friend, an older friend or whatever, just a guy that was around you that kind of slapped this label on you, and you realized and you've carried that. Yeah. We just don't realize where that comes. And it can be so liberating. It's amazing to see people through tears putting those labels on there and then accepting a new label about themselves. So it's not about going back to go, let's wallow in this. Let's live here forever. It's about letting it go and letting Jesus heal you so that you can move forward.
Yeah. I think what people might underestimate about the opportunity to go back and look at and identify these labels is if you're unwilling to do that, you're not going to be able to be in a position to get that new label.
Yeah.
Only because I've done the work of writing the label of the kid, have I been able to find a new label in God's Son.
Yeah, wow.
Which is a much better label.
You can't be healed from what you're unwilling to acknowledge. And so for many of us, we spend a lot of our lives avoiding.
Yeah.
Running away from, doing whatever we can to just not face. It's painful, it's uncomfortable, but allowing Jesus into the most painful parts of our past, of what we've been through and our experience, is the only way to find freedom from that. He wants to set you free. The problem is we have to be willing to go there, to go, okay, here it is, and all of its ugliness, and all of its childishness, as silly and as ridiculous as this sounds.
Yeah.
Here you go. This is what I'm dealing with. And when we do that, then you can start to find freedom and healing, and you can start to move forward and truly become someone new.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen without access and acknowledgement.
Pastor Timothy Keller, I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but he says escapism, which would be drinking, drugs, it can be something that doesn't appear to be as detrimental.
Ice cream.
Yeah, food,
sure.
Netflix.
Right.
Escapism causes you to run away from that pain, but Jesus helps you walk through it.
Yeah.
Let's just say there's somebody listening who's into this. What are some steps they can take? I know one thing you always say is, who knows your secret?
Yeah, who knows your story, your struggle, and your secret? So I think those are three things. Like your story is where you come from. What's your struggle? It's my battle. It's what I deal with.
Yeah.
These are the issues that kind of keep coming up in my life. And then the secrets are the things you'd rather tell no one.
Yeah.
And I say it this way, not everybody has to know your story, your struggle, and your secrets, but someone does.
Yeah.
And I think one of the most difficult things about modern life is that we're so isolated.
Mm-hmm.
We live such an individualistic life these days.
Especially right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. No kidding. That we're not connected to anyone. And so, and we live under the mistaken illusion that, well, it's my burden to carry. I was just talking to a lady who's, in her 70s, not too long ago, who was saying, my mom just drilled it into me. Nobody wants to hear about your problems.
Oh,
carry them yourself. And it's like, wow, what damage does that do?
Yeah.
When that's what you've been told since you were a little kid, this is how you do it. You deal with your own problems. Don't. So we worship at the altar of this sort of John Wayne Christianity that's like, I can handle it myself. This Lone Ranger Christianity of, I'll just deal with it. Mm-hmm. Rather than recognizing and embracing the words of Jesus, which is, if anyone would come to me, let him take up his cross, deny himself and follow me. It's like there is a pain, there's a cross that all of us have to bear and walk through. But on the other side of the cross is resurrection. The problem is so many people don't experience new life because they're unwilling to die. And so often counseling or secrets, revealing secrets, talking about going into why do I do the things I do, that feels like death to a lot of people.
Yeah.
In other words, I don't know that there's any coming back from that. Once I open that door up, I don't know that they won't take me seriously. They'll never see me the same way. My marriage will be over.
Yeah.
There's any number of excuses that come to mind. but it feels like death. And if you can go, okay, Lord, I trust you. I'm walking willfully to the cross, willfully into death, and I'm just going to trust that there's resurrection on the other side. For the people who are willing to do that, they find it. It's amazing every time.
Man, this is one of my favorite conversations that we've ever had because I firsthand understand the power of digging into your past and being able to find freedom. Man, and I'm just so excited for anyone who's listening to this podcast to begin this journey and find freedom from some of the labels that people have put on them in the past. And hey, if you're listening to this and you want to take a step, we're going to put some counseling organizations here in the Tulsa area that we recommend. A couple of them, which I've used and do use. And then if you're not in the Tulsa area, I would encourage you to search out a Christian counselor that can help you walk down this road towards freedom. Hey, thanks for listening to this episode of our podcast. Spirit in Motion is a podcast from Church on the Move in Tulsa, Oklahoma. For more information, you can go to churchonthemove.com. We'll see you next time.